Governor Kasich finished up his answer to a question on excessive government regulation when I came in with my education question.
This all has to be thinned out, and all regulations have to be looked at as to be common sense.
I'm old enough to remember when there wasn't a Department of Education. I started teaching in the 70s before it came on board.
What'd you teach?
I taught U.S. history.
Really?
Yes, and civics and economics. And
Are you
all
still?
sorts of things. No, I retired 5 years ago. But I couldn't wait to get out in many ways because I was going to meetings all the time, and I was filling out a lot of paperwork because of federal involvement.
Yeah.
Because the federal government basically took over, told the states what to do. The states would tell us what to do. Half my time was spent doing that and not teaching, which is what I really liked. And
what I would do is I want to take...
But I'm leading up to something. Do we need a Department of Education? And we have a $20 trillion almost deficit, debt, and government is growing and growing and growing. And what would you do to cut the federal government and actually return things back to the states?
Would
the Department of Education be on the block?
Welfare, education. I would take 104 federal programs and bundle them into 4 buckets, send it back. Transportation, I would have 2 pennies. I wish they'd asked me this question last night. I would send 2 cents to Washington to maintain the interstate, and that'd be it. All the other money that we pay at the pump, including federal taxes, would remain in the state for you to manage however you want.
What about airports and all that? Doesn't that money come from there?
Well, look, I mean, the federal gas tax, I think the federal gas tax money only goes to the highways. But if we need to, look, I have to check that. But we're not going to leave the airports like undone or anything like that. Because, see, for example, we kill the Department of Commerce, and we take, like NOAA and a lot of these programs, and we move them other places because there's too many duplications. But if you would do that, and they voted for it in Congress, I mean, there have been votes on it, but it never passes, then you would have more bang for the buck. And I'll check on the air. Chris, we asked to ask Wayne about so we'll check on that. But it would be accommodated.
So would you eliminate the Department of Education?
The answer to that is there would still be a framework there. I ain't saying any more than that. I am not going to be a Republican that's going to sit here and say I'm going to eliminate the Federal Department of Education. Sorry.
How about vouchers?
But they're not going to have any. The money's going to come here. Okay, I'm not getting in the. I'm not going there. I'm not going to be. I've been through this once. I'm not having people run around saying, "Oh, they want to kill education." Vouchers and all that. Well, I'm all for it. We voucher everything. Vouchered in Ohio charter schools. But I want you to run the schools. If I'm president, I want you to. I don't want to run the schools.
And we could.
Yeah. Well, I hope.
You don't need
I would hope. I would hope you would. I'm not. I mean, I'm telling you, these schools are tough to change.
Yeah.
So we passed a bill that if you fail, if you get an F as a school district, based on the metrics of how kids are doing, blah blah blah, we can appoint a board that overtakes your board of education to fix the schools. In the city of Youngstown, in 9 years, only 1% of the high school graduates are college ready. It is a dismal failure, and the politics are killing it. So we're going to appoint a board that will oversee it, and the minute they get it fixed, they restore the power back. And what can they do? They can do whatever they want to do except affect benefits and pay. They can move teachers around. They can do anything they want to do. And so, what happens right away? People want to get rid of it. They want to repeal it. I said, over my dead body, you're going to repeal it. Because it's the single biggest. Now, that's state. So as a president, what I would do on education is I'd want to travel and tell people about the things that are being done in states that are working. And then get it to work. And what would they do in Washington? Maybe they would, I don't know, do a report. I don't know.
Back to Iran, Governor. When the Iran deal passed, it looked like the Republicans in the Senate pretty much gave it to them by saying we don't need a 2/3 majority vote to approve this. we passed a bill that said we could
I
just-
called for that. I said there was a way that I thought that you could avoid the filibuster. And I'd made a recommendation. I can't remember what it is right now. But for some reason, the Republicans didn't do it. I can't answer that question. I just don't know why they didn't. But what was it we called for, Chris? Remember?
What issue?
On Iran. Remember
On
we
the
were
Senate
saying
approval
that
of
the
the
Senate,
Iran Treaty.
that they should only need 50 or 51 votes. Remember I called for that?
Yeah, getting rid of the filibuster, basically.
Well, but it wasn't getting rid of it was more nuanced than that. It would have given them an opportunity to vote. I don't know why they didn't do it.
If it's a treaty, the Constitution requires a 2/3 vote by the Senate. But Republicans passed a bill which allowed it to happen with a simple majority.
No, I think what happened was they couldn't have a vote on it because the Democrats were filibustering it. That's what happened. They blocked the vote. They didn't vote. They couldn't get the votes to have a vote on it. And frankly, I think it's wrong to do an agreement with somebody like Iran and not have the Congress vote on it or the Senate vote on it. I think it's
With
ridiculous.
a 2/3 majority, advising consent
Yeah,
of
I
the
mean
Senate.
it's the way I've always thought it should be done.
That's what the Constitution says.
But you see, without the 2/3, if they couldn't get the 2/3, it couldn't be approved. But they could never get to the point where they would actually have a vote because of the filibuster.
So they basically gave in by allowing it to be called something other than a treaty that would require.
No, they tried, but they couldn't get the votes. Now, they could have used a mechanism to say, no, it's going to be a 51 vote that gets us to the next issue, but they couldn't get it done. And I don't know why they didn't change that for that. I can't answer it.
Okay. What's the
Thanks
president's
for the answer. Thank you.
What's the president's single greatest responsibility?
I think probably as a leader, using the bully pulpit and being a good role model, I think is probably the most important thing.
As opposed to being a bully?
Well, being,
That's a
no.
joke.
I guess what I'm saying is nobody can expect a human being to. I got my flaws, probably more than anybody sitting in this room. But when I became governor, my wife one time, I say, she would just watch me do things, and she would say, you're the father of Ohio. Would you just act like it? You have to carry yourself a certain way. You have to. You can get uptight about it, but you got to be a leader. That's, I think, a responsibility that comes with this job.
Governor Kasich didn't impress me with his leadership abilities. I think he backed down from the question I was trying to drive at about the Iran Treaty, where the Senate should have forced President Obama to abide by the Constitution and not and call it a treaty, not call it an executive agreement. They backed down because they didn't want a confrontation with the president, and they should have gone to the wall with it, and they should have even threatened impeachment, which they'd earlier taken off the table. And it's part of the frustration of what the Republican base feels with the Republican leadership, which I think is, Kasich is one of them. He's part of the Republican establishment, and I guess I'll just leave it at that.